Life Beyond Labels is a Quiet Loud Studios production, proudly featured on Sports E Media. Discover more at quietloudstudios.com. Background music created by Yo Crane. Hello, and welcome back to the Life Beyond Labels podcast. I'm so grateful that you're here, and I hope that you're left feeling better than when you started this episode. So, on this podcast, I sometimes share advice that has helped me. And this is a little bit of a shorter episode, but I just want to share that the advice that I talk about on this podcast is more about ways to live your life beyond labels or whatever it is that we're talking about, and not a definitive, this is how you live your life beyond labels, this is how you change your life. Because we're all different and we all have different come from spaces. So if you're someone who has read endless self help books, who has tried different workout plans, bought calendars, and just you've tried everything and you still struggle to find something that works for you or a way to change your life that works for you because you've tried so many things, I am also that person. I've Googled how to get a six pack in 30 days. I've Googled how to make more money online. And then I go into how do I invest. And I always leave feeling like I did it wrong because I don't actually know how to do it still. And I Googled a lot. And I love a good how to video that shows me how to cook a recipe or how to curl my hair. But I think when it comes to wellness advice and a few other topics, we should have more intentional language around labeling things as one way to or ways to rather than how to. And what I mean by that is not interpreting or framing things as one end all be all way of how to do things. For example, my college coach subscribed to the idea that there was one way to be successful, and that was her way. So when we all got to NC State at the start of the season, we were not allowed to pick up our bats for, I want to say, 3 weeks. We were going to start with the basics. And I actually really liked that. I appreciated that. I liked breaking it down. However, the issue and the difficult part was that she had, quote, figured out or believed that she had figured out the secret formula to hitting home runs and the single how to formula for being a successful hitter. So she had broken down this hitting formula into extremely tedious detail. We had to bat tip really far forward, scap load. We all had to have this huge leg kick, separate, hip hinge, shoulder stack, break our wrist coming around. It was like 6 or 7 steps, turn, follow through. I mean, everything from our wrists to our ankles to our elbows, fingers, like had to be in the exact right position at the exact right sequence. And the difficulty in that, not to be blunt, but that's not even really how hitting works because it's not how the body works. And so when someone is hitting, inevitably, some motions are going to cause other motions. So not every aspect of hitting is a forced individual motion or movement. And if you watch a baseball or softball game on TV, you'll see everything kind of works together. And even different hitters have different swings. Some hitters are more compact, they have short swings. Some hitters are long and drawn out in their load. And so there's obviously certain mechanics to the game or basics to be a successful hitter. But when it comes to a swing, not every single part of it is cookie cutter. And there's not a one size fits all formula because hitters have different body types. They need different mental cues. They have different habits that they need to overcompensate for. And so when it comes to some parts of the swing, there are multiple ways to do it. And so many of us struggled because we really bought into this mindset and this formula. And then the formula would get discovered every 3 months. But in hindsight, looking back, there are aspects of hitting that do require basic aspects of how to and can be taught that way. But there are also aspects of hitting that allow for multiple ways of doing something. So I guess for a mental example, we also, oh my gosh, we also did this mental performance program, which I love that stuff. I've read so many mental performance books. I love them. We had this thick book of how to dominate mental performance. and we had a call with the main consultant. And in our team meeting after the call with the main consultant, we were asked, what did we think of it? What did we gather from it? And I raised my hand all excited. And I said, I was really inspired by how much energy he had. It's a Tuesday night. It's COVID. We're all virtual online. And he showed up with so much energy. And not everyone has that energy 24/7. So I think it really motivates me to emulate that because we don't even know what kind of day he might have been having. And he chose to show up that way. And my coach goes, Kelsey, no, clearly you missed the entire point. He does have that energy 24/7, and we need to emulate that. And obviously, you missed the entire point. And I remember being obviously frustrated, but it was like there was one specific way for us to learn how to mentally dominate. And there was one specific way for us to interpret this call and interpret the content. And I tried almost every suggestion in that book. I think I tried everything, and some of them worked. I love visualization. I believe in affirmations and all of those kinds of things. But then some other things didn't necessarily work for me, but it was framed as this how to guide to dominate. And if you followed these steps and these strategies, if you didn't get the results, I felt like I was messing up. And I know that I was choosing to see it that way, but I felt like I was doing something wrong or I wasn't trying hard enough. And so when I tried these strategies and I was still overthinking, I figured I was wrong. And instead of the strategy might just not work for me. And I know I chose to see it that way. But I think how to's, depending on the topic, make it seem as though there is one secret formula. There is one secret to success, the secret to winning, the formula for leadership. And if it doesn't work on you, then you didn't do it right. And that oversimplifies how complex we are. But it's not that this kind of advice isn't helpful or shouldn't exist at all. I'm giving advice on this podcast. I love swapping ideas and offering advice and listening to advice from other people. But I want this podcast to come across in a way that's approachable and offers suggestions of ways to apply a new mindset or ways to process things or things that have just truly helped me. And if that doesn't work for you, it's not because you're broken or you're lazy or you're doing it wrong. Your mind just might map things out differently. So think of it this way, there's no one way to stay healthy via exercise. You can run, you can do yoga, you can lift weights. There isn't one formula to be healthy. That's why there's so many diets and arguments on which one works and plans. But that's why framing it as one way to achieve this goal that you have or this result versus this is how you achieve the result that you want, you don't know if that's how it's going to work for your body type, for your medical history, for whatever personal schedule you have to be on because of work or kids or family or whatever that looks like for you. And so there's room for your way of doing things too. And if you, even if in terms of goal setting, if you have a goal of becoming a country music star, there's no one correct way to do that. Reba McEntire, Jelly Roll, and Jason Aldean probably did not have the same way of getting into an industry. And so some of them might have gotten there because of family or because of, meeting the right people or because they competed on The Voice. And it doesn't matter how they got there, there's room for them. And so just because there's already country music stars in the world doesn't mean that there isn't room for someone else to bring their authentic self to the scene. And that's how you should see the spaces that you want to be in. There's room for you, and there's room for your way of getting there. There's no one single way of how to get there. So I guess my action advice is whatever it is that you want to learn how to do, still try something. Pick something and try it. Try it consistently. Reflect on if it works for you. And if it doesn't, keep trying until you find something that does. Let's say it's waking up early. Some people argue that the key to success is waking up early. You have to wake up early and rise and grind. But some of the most creative and successful people stay up really late because that's when their creativity hits. plays that have been written, songs that have been written. You watch interviews of celebrities and they talk about how their creative urge came at 3 in the morning. And so when you hear formulas for changing your life from influencers, speakers, I just encourage you to remember that are these are not how-tos for changing your life. These are ways to change your life. And framing it this way allows for more mental freedom and less judgment in figuring out what habits and strategies work for you to become your best self. So, in an effort to be a self aware podcast, I hope that it does come across that I'm offering my opinion of things. I'm offering an option or options of ways to shift perspective, ways to view things, and things that have genuinely helped me to find happiness, peace, joy. And I want to share that in case they help you too. And I'm passionate about this, particularly because I feel like recently I've seen mental health podcasts or mental health advocates that sometimes unknowingly enter this space of giving generalized advice. And so instead of framing it as, here's my experience, here's what helped me, and it might help you, which is incredible. I love listening to other people's stories. It's so necessary. I see it crossing over into this will help you, this should help you, because I think that's a blurry line to cross, especially if you're not a professional in the field that you're offering concrete how to advice in. So labeling it as a how to could actually do more harm to self esteem and habits of particular people than slightly relabeling it as something as a way to do something. I'm currently getting my master's in social work. And part of that is because I would love to evolve with my content. Because what I speak about right now and what I try to be so careful of is sharing my experience as it is applied to my mindset, my joy in my life, and these things that have helped me. But knowing that I'm just one person and I don't want to project my experiences onto someone else just because it appears that our circumstances might be similar. And so I want to be able to cross over from sharing what has helped me to potentially being able to offer advice based on evidence based practices, based on studies, based on work experience with different people and different environments. And that's also not to say that just because you have a degree, that makes you better or that makes you extremely more qualified than someone who does have real world experience or you're better somehow. Not at all. However, I think it is important to think about who you're getting advice from, who is giving you concrete how to advice. Are they where you want to be? What is success to you? And are they emulating that? And depending on their profession, there might hopefully be structure and sensitivity in what they're held accountable to saying when they're offering advice because of a potential governing body or a code of ethics that they have to abide by. And so all that to say, just receive advice with an open mind and give advice with more open language, I think. And so if you're giving advice, label it responsibly. I don't know if that makes any sense, but in any case, I would say label it responsibly if you're giving advice. And when applying advice to your own life, pick a strategy and try it. Pick something, try it, do it consistently, but don't get discouraged if you try a how to video or a how to article and for whatever reason you didn't get the same result that you were, quote, supposed to. Stay encouraged to keep trying new things and find what works for you. Try it consistently so you can actually see if it works. And then if it doesn't, reflect on why it didn't work for you. Keep searching until you do find that advice that does change your life for the better and does send you in the direction that you want to go. So while I hope to offer really meaningful ways of reframing thoughts or practices that have helped me, just remember that there are other ways to look at it. And what I share on this podcast is just the way that I do, in a way that I hope will also help someone else. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on the Life Beyond Labels podcast.